Trading the foreign exchange market carries high risk and may not be suitable for all investors. Trading on margin, utilizing leverage can carry an even higher level of risk that can lead to a complete loss of investment funds. So before deciding to trade the foreign exchange market or using any of our software alert products, you should carefully and diligently consider your personal investment objectives, level of experience, and risk tolerance. There is a possibility that you could potentially sustain significant loss. You should not invest any capital or trade that you cannot afford to lose. It is your responsibility to be aware of and understand all risks associated with foreign exchange trading and to seek professional advice from an independent certified financial advisor if you have any doubts. Auvoria Prime does not exercise trading authority over your trades. You and you alone exercise discretionary trading authority over every trade.
Right now, the news for Monday, June 14th, I see no red folders. Monday, Tuesday, we have a few coming up around 8:30 on Tuesday. But for today, it looks like it's going to be a relatively quiet day news-wise. And looking for to see what our strong and weaker currency pairs are. You can see right now, I'm looking at the euro and the Swiss are in the top three, along with the British pound, it looks like. So it looks like we're trading to the strength of the pound, the Swiss, and the euro, and to the weakness of the Canadian dollar, US dollar, and Japanese yen for starters to see what we have. And so we go to the charts, see if we can find any trades to take this morning. Mondays are usually kind of quiet. Usually we don't have a lot of big movement going on, a lot of positions. The institutions are taking their positions for the week. And so sometimes we don't get a whole lot to trade with. But if you have any questions, then Fridays are usually good days for asking questions, clarifying any things that may be a little bit foggy to you. We do have some people in this room that are brand new to this, some people that are been with us for several months now. And we welcome both levels of experience, just that we just have to make sure that we can get the people that are new to get caught up in what we're doing here. I try and go through it as meticulously as we can to explain it over and over the same way. But if you're new, you still may not understand some of the terminology, and just let us know, and so we can help clarify things to help you get on board and up to speed a lot quicker. So having said that, let's take a look at some of see if we have anything. There's a 5-minute. We were saying trading to now the CAD and the yen are both kind of on the weak side, so we might not. Let's see what we have here for this one. We do have a bounce arrow go. I don't know if we have enough 20 pips to the downside. Let's see, we're on a 5-minute chart. I'd like to see 20 pips. We only have 4, so that's pretty tight, not enough room for any trades. Again, we'd like to have at least a 15 pip range in between these zones from where our entry is to where the next zone is, whether we're going long or short. I'd like to see at least 15 pips to our zone that we have on that we're looking for a target. This one's it's quite a bit tight. 4 pips barely gets the spread taken out of this, so that's not a really good option for us. Now take a look at some of the indexes. Since the European markets have been open for a while, let's check the German 30. Let's see if there's anything there. I've got that one down here already. And we'll see here, we're on a 5-minute chart. We have a balance here. So the whole range between this red zone and the green zone, that looks like it's about $67 range. That's a pretty good range. And where the price is now to the bottom, it's we have about a $20 move to it. This thing does move pretty fast. But let's go ahead and see what we can do with our Fibonacci's on this one. Let's get to a higher time frame. I like to start with a 15-minute chart. You can see this thing had a lot of movement the other day, and it made some new highs, it looks like. Let's see let's pull it out a little bit stronger here too. Yeah, you can see for the last, this thing made new highs this past week. So it's still in a strong uptrend. We're basically going to be looking for some pullbacks. And see where we can take that. We have all these on this weekly chart. We have all these wicks right here. So that means there's a lot of buying pressure. Every time it came back down to this yellow line 3 times in the last several weeks, it just shot right back up again. So this yellow line right here, it does have some strength to it. So I'm just going to go ahead and just mark where that one is, just for reference. Let's go to our lower time frame and see how far down the road that one is. So I would be looking at, right now I'm looking at strong uptrend, new high, got a pullback. I'm on a daily chart. I would probably have to be looking at this little pivot low to the new high and see it, draw that from my Fibonacci range. So that's what I'm going to do. Because I'm really not seeing any zones below where that was. As I pull back a little bit, there's one. Oh, here's a zone right here. So let's see what the range on this one is. Probably be looking at this little bounce off of this. Let's take it down to, let's just take it down to this. You see this pivot low to this pivot high. I think I'll start with that one. I'll try and mark my upper 25, my lower 25%. I hope everybody reset their VPSs over the weekend. They did some work on it. Auvoria Prime did some work with their VPS, and you should have done an update as well as a reboot on that VPS that we use. If you didn't, you may want to find some time today to make that happen while things are still kind of quiet. There were several updates that they had. You just don't want things to get bogged down because the VPS wasn't tuned right. Starting to check our middle third out. There's that one. So basically what I'm doing is I'm setting the range for finding out where the price is going sideways in a range. So basically it's going in between these two zones. And we're looking to see where it trends on a lower time frame to where it comes into these orange lines for targets and pullbacks and bounces and things like that. Now, as the price goes, this is almost like the magnet area. This is where the price comes back into. It was all into here, came back out, came back in, went out, came back in, went up, came back in. So we're looking to try and catch these moves from the upper 25 to the orange zones, the lower 25 up to the orange zones. And that's pretty much what we're trying to do here. And we're trying to find where it starts trending in order to make that happen. And we do that on the lower time frames. And we're going to check out and see now where we are with the 15-minute chart. It's coming out, has a nice little bounce arrow, and it's coming right into, it came out of the upper 25, came up. This is the move I'm looking for, the big strong move out of this 25% zone, back into it, give us a little bit of a wedge. And now we're looking, so we have our trend line. Here's our trend line, and we're looking to see where we're going to get hits on the trend line as it pulls back. So this was the first move up, back. This is not the move to be taken now because it's already coming up into our zone. But we may get another strong pullback back into this area to take it short. This is where the prices start getting themselves set up in the meantime while they're for the new week. And I'll tweak this up a little bit, just try and move these Fibonacci, this zone as tight as I can to make it as accurate as I can. Just move that up just a little bit. And so we see we are coming right into the first orange zone. We got a little bit, came right down, bounced off of that. Let's go to a lower time frame and see if there's any room to maybe take a trade here. Strong move down, pull back. We have another little descending wedge going on. Let's see. I'd like to see it try and get an upper trending wedge here if I can find one. It did break this little pivot low right here, so broke it, coming back down. So they'll probably get a little bit of a retest of this up to the upper trend line. Right now, I'd be looking to see if it can pull back closer to this trend line to maybe take it short. The strong move down, small. Well, here's a strong move down. Here's the retrace. Strong move down. Should be getting another retrace. Probably come back, maybe retest the trend line. And if it does, then maybe we can go and be looking for this as a target, or this middle zone between this orange line and that orange line. That'd be the target. So we just pretty much have to wait and see what happens here. Go to a 5-minute chart and see if we can catch something on the smaller. Remember, we go to smaller time frames. We have tighter stops, smaller targets, but then we can just take those targets and just go over and over again to take the trades as it continues its trend to our target zones. Let's see how much room we have here. And it's still showing about $20. Let's see. 57.02 to 56. Yeah, that's about $20 move here. All of our moving averages are in the right direction. So I'd still say a little bit stronger pullback. Right now it's bouncing off of our, this is our first target zone. We have another zone coming in. Right now, I think I'd just hold off on this one a little bit and see if it has enough punch to the downside. But I'm going to go and change my lot size on this to a 0.05. If I do take this trade, take a trade here. So I'm going to see a little stronger pullback and then look and see if we have, because really right now it could bounce, it seems to be bouncing off of this first orange zone. It hasn't broken through. I like to see a breakthrough, come back, retest it. And we don't really have a trend line on the other side. It did break this little pivot, but not by a lot. We do have, so I would say the trend line that we're looking at is this little pivot here on down somewhere. I don't think it's really confirmed. We could go with this one actually. Off a 5-minute. Here's a strong move up. Here's the origin of the strong move up. I'm going to bring this thing over here to the origin of that. That's the anchor. Here's a hit. And I'm just going to intersect that. There's the anchor. There's a hit. There's a near hit. And right now it's coming into, we have a little bit of an energy point right here with this orange line horizontal and the trend line. And see if it can break through that. But as soon as we break through this, we have this nice little green zone right here. So if you do take it short, it'd be a quick move. And so on Monday mornings, I'll usually hold off on this and just start getting a little bit of feel for the pattern for the week and get a feel for how well it moves during the week. So we'll just move on, but we'll keep this one in mind. We'll keep an eye on this one. This one could actually work out. I'm just not going to take it yet. I'm still settling in for the week. And let's see, let's take a look at the British Swiss. That was another one they were both strong. There's a bounce arrow. How much room do we have to the downside? That's 10 pips. I'd like to see 20 for the back entries. Usually 20 pips on a 5-minute, 15-minute chart. And there's 34 pips. This could be a nice little bag entry. Let's put our moving averages up here. We have more red zones and green zones. And our moving averages are pretty much in the right direction. We're having strong move down. Here's the pullback. We got the 5 and the 13. We're looking for that to cross. If it doesn't cross, we might have room to the downside on this one. Green zone. We have the 20 pips. And so right now we have a little bit of a wedge going on. There's a little pivot high that tagged the 200 moving average. Here's our anchor. Here's a hit. Here's a pivot low. There were some buyers that came in right at this point. That's still about 17 pips. Okay, that's still within range. And you still have the green zone right below. More red zones than you do green zones. And looking to the British pound is The pound and Swiss are both relatively strong, so they're going to be battling out to see who's going to prevail the strength on this one. Right now, it's pretty much neck and neck. I'll wait and see if we get a commitment on the, let's go to a 1 minute chart and see where the 1 minute chart is on this. Here's a zone that's going to have to be dealt with. This is why where the British and the Swiss they're both strong, so not one is not predominant over the other, and that's what helped form this little zone right here as they're battling out. I would prefer to take the trade once it breaks through this little green zone till it gets to the next one. And so is how our trend line hits. Moving averages are consolidating right here. We have a little bit of a trend on the bottom. Here's a pivot low. Here's the hit. Here's our wedge right here. Here, as it gets closer to the peak of this, it's going to either break to the top, give us a head fake, and keep on going, or it's going to break to the bottom and keep on going to the. Right now, we don't know which way it's going to go. Other than the fact we know it's consolidating. It's going sideways inside a relatively narrow range, and that's only like 8 pip range right now. So if you were to get into this trade, you'd be having to deal with the spread and inside a very narrow range. But so once it breaks through this green zone, then we can be looking at this. So let's draw some Fibonacci's on this on these moves. I kind of like this one down from here up to here. So let's draw our upper and lower 25% zones. So here's the low, here's the high. And put our rectangles in. Here's the upper part. Here's the lower 25. Here's our target zone. There's the first one. Second one. There's the third one. Here's our 3 targets. See, it already came down and broke into the first part, is retracing back up into our upper 25. We have our trend line. We'll see if it can come up and retest. And see our target zone to be here. It's only 10 pips. That's only 6 pips. These zones are really pretty tight right now. I think we may need to make that whole zone a little bit bigger. We have very narrow zones in between these blue areas, and we're looking at that's only 3 pips. I'd like to see at least 7 pips in that. So this Fibonacci is not going to work. It's just too tight. So let's go with a higher level zone here. I think this one would be better. So that's why I don't like drawing these on anything lower than a 15-minute, because even though the zone may look right, there isn't enough room to maneuver the trade. So we're going to take this. Bring this one up here. I'll bring this one all the way down below. And you can see how these zones are spreading out a lot better. Gives us a little bit more room. So you don't want to be taking something where you just can't even get your spread out of there for a profit. So now the zones are between these orange zones. Right now we have 11 pips. That's a lot better. That's a lot better area. We're in. So we're right. Basically, we are in the middle of this big move up, and we're going to wait and see what happens as it maneuvers to the right side. See if it breaks out of these little wedges here. We can see that we had a lot of strong pressure coming up. These big wicks right here, saying that it's got. This is where the buyers came in. This move down is where the sellers came in. So the sellers are really ranging in between the upper 25 and the middle. And we'll see how far back it comes up and see if it can work its way back down to the lower part. Any questions so far what I'm doing?
Doesn't seem to be any questions really.
Okay. Yeah, so the biggest thing is to make sure that when you draw your fibs, make sure there's enough room to make some profit in between these zones and still get your spread out of there. That's probably the main thing that I want to bring to everybody's attention with that little exercise we just did. This is the origin of this big move. Here's where it started up, came back up, retested. So this is the this is what I'll call the retest zone right in here, which is right at this orange line. Came on up and retested the orange line, came back up, retested. Now we're getting some trend lines going. So once we get the trend line break, we can get this little trend line break here. This could be our move toward downside for our target, but even that one is only 10 pips away. But right now, here's the test. It's coming up and retesting our trend line. And we could take it actually from, take it up a little bit higher here if we really wanted to. It's still the same valid. Here's the anchor. Here's the first hit, which set the trend line. This one validated the trend line. So we have an anchor, pulls back down, comes up, gives us a pivot high. That tells us there's our trend. Gets rejected, comes back up, tests it again. That validates this as a trend line. So right now, but we do have this red zone right in here. You'd have to pretty much get through this little wick. This would be where the traps can be set. We have a wick here. We have a wick here. It comes up, breaks the trend line. You say, oh, it's going to go long, and all of a sudden you have to get through all these little wicks. So I'm going to make a note of where those are. Just to mark that little area there, and we'll come to a 1 minute chart and see how it's looking on the 1 minute, and see if the moving averages can give us confirmation of which direction this thing may want to go. Tweak that up just a little bit to bring it right on up to that point. And see, right now we are looking at the British Swiss and the British. If we look at the heat map, you can see where the British Swiss is all right here, they're right together in the upper part. So they're both strong compared to the other, of the 8 currency pairs, are the 2 strongest. Not so much on the higher time frames, but on the lower time frames, this is where they're battling out. And right now, the Swiss still seems to be maintaining its strength over the British pound. So we'd still be more, if we're going to trade it, we'd be in favor of the side of the Swiss. And so since the Swiss is the second currency of the pair, when it gets stronger, it's going to be going to the downside. So we'd be looking, right now I'm looking more of a pullback. We had a nice break of the upper 25. Well, see, that's not it here. We're all the way down the lower zone here. The overnight break, where was it? Here's the whole overnight move. Here's the money zone. So right this point right here is where it broke the overnight session for Sunday session, came back up with strong move down. So there's a lot of selling pressure once it got up in that. That was the little. And so right now we still have the selling pressure, strong move down, pull back, and we're still looking for this thing to pretty much go lower, with the Swiss franc being the second pair of the second currency of the pair, and it was stronger than the British pound. So we're looking to the strength to the downside on this. Oh, we're moving out. Here's this nice little green line that came up, tagged the yellow, and now it's hooking back over. This could be the pullback that we're looking for, and then it's a matter of where the target's going to be. If I do get into this trade, I'll probably be using this orange line as a target, and that would give me my 7 pips if we can get in up at this upper area. Go to my 1 minute chart. You see on the 1 minute chart, we have the cross of the green over the yellow. So right now, this thing still has a little push to the upside. I would want to be seeing this green cross back over below the yellow moving average with enough room to get to this for a target. So if this is my target, the first green part is my target, or the trend line is my target, and I'm looking for a 7 pip, that means I want to be entering in as it's coming up into this area if I want to still take this thing short. So what I'm going to be looking now is I'm going to be changing my Fibonacci's from to the downside. So here's my, this is the first move, here's the pullback, and we're seeing if it's going to pull, what kind of percentage it's going to pull back. So I'm going to remove my Fibonacci lines and redraw them. I'm going to keep my zones. Just delete that so we get that out of the way. And then I'm going to draw another Fibonacci from the last tag of the pivot to where it was rejected. And I'm looking for how much of a retracement from this point. Here's the move down. Here's the retracement. And we're going to see if it retraces up into this trend line. And also we have the 76. This is the upper 25% zone, which is going to be basically this area right in here. It got rejected. This came back. Here's the green line. And now we have another zone in the top. Oh, it's tempting to take this one. I'd like to see these yellow-green lines move, the moving averages. And we do have another little bottom trend line coming up. And it's changing the angle a little bit. This is where I'd be more apt to put a sell stop in. Came up all the way up to the 76% retracement. Not quite 76, got rejected. And I'd be looking to maybe see if I could get in at this area, but that's still not a lot of room. That's only three pips. I really want to see it break this zone. It's just not quite ready to give it up yet. Right now it's consolidating right in this area.
Al, that new trend line that you just drew on there, would you consider that as an invalidation of the earlier one that you drew? Or
no, this one here?
Yeah.
No, not really. This is still the main one. All I'm seeing is that what's happening though is it's changing the angle of the bottom, which basically is telling me that this upper wedge is still holding, is still making higher lows without making the higher high, but change the angle on it. So I just find that usually a lot of times when you see it bouncing off of a more gradual trend like this bottom one, before it actually makes its turn and changes direction, it has a much sharper angle to the top before it actually makes the turn. So right now I'm looking at this thing to make this turn at the top, and this increase in the angle a little bit to where it's still making lower highs. Here's a high, here's a lower high, here's a lower high, but it's getting tighter and tighter. In other words, the buyers are still coming in, pushing it up, but it's usually, this is sort of like when you climb a mountain and you find out it gets the steepest right at the very crest of the mountain. That's the same type of thing. It gets a lot steeper right before it makes the turn on the other side.
Okay.
So that's the only reason why I drew that. So it's just really changed. It's still inside the major wedge, which is this upper trend line and the lower trend line, but just changed the angle. So right now it's giving us a little bit of thinking that it may want to be going longer, but it's coming right up into this area right up in here, this zone. As I so want to see, before I take it short, I want to see these moving averages turn around. And I'm still looking at this. This could be the trap area. If it breaks through there, you still have this area. It's got this wick to go through. And if you come over, when I look at the wicks, I look at where the wick, you come over here, you see another series of wicks. So this little whole area right in here is really what I've got to be concerned about for the, let's see if I can grab this. This little drop, here's a little wick over wick, here's drop, little base over base. And this area right in here is where there's a pip, this is the last test. So the price came all the way down here, came back up, retested that little wick over wick area. And so it's got to get through that. This is where I think this is going to be somewhat of a trap too. This may be a good place to take it short. If it breaks through that, just you have a really tight stop. So if it does break through and keeps on going, well, you just get stopped out quicker. But you have this whole move down, you're getting a good entry to the downside. But I want to see more of a confirmation that this area is going to hold. And right now, the British just took over the Swiss in strength. And we just got a British Swiss 1 minute, probably a buy, I'll bet. It's not showing up on my dashboard. So we did break the upper trend line, but we're in up to all these little red zones right here. So again, it's I'm not sure it's ready to be taking a trade. This is where you can especially get caught on Mondays and Fridays, where you get these types of moves where it looks like it's going to give it up and then just keeps on going. But this zone right here is still holding. So if we look and see where we drew that, our little wick over wick area up here, you can see this area is still holding. But now it's going to get through this. This is going to be the wick, but it's also in this red zone. A lot of times you get these level on levels. We have a red zone with a little space and another red zone. The first one may get broken through, but the second one holds. So it didn't fit our criteria to go short, then so we didn't take it. And right now we're probably pretty glad that we didn't take it short off this little bounce right here, because now you'd be looking, now you'd be in drawdown and wondering, should I stay in, should I stay out? But it didn't give me the picture that I was looking for. I was waiting for this green line to come back across over the other yellow. It never did. So you don't know what the strength's going to be on these moves, but you wait and see where it hits a level, gives it up, and then you start over again. So right now we can actually probably redraw this Fibonacci line, because here's our pivot high, here's our low. So this low held, this high held. So now we can draw from this move down. So let me redraw these. Let me take this off. Since the first one was violated or was invalid, it didn't validate itself, I guess I should say. So now I'm going to be looking at this zone from here down to here. The major zones, these orange zones, which was my higher time frame, they're still valid. Now is the question about, and my upper zone, higher time frame is still valid. But now I'm just looking at this little move down and seeing if this move out of the 20% zone is going to be valid or not. And here's where that 20% zone is. And so we're going to take it. Yeah, right now it's still trying to decide which way it wants to go. I don't really have a lower time frame Fibonacci zone to really draw right now. Since this was the move out of that I was looking for, it came back up, tested it, came back down. I was looking for this to break, but it didn't. So right now it's just making it just range bound. It's just came into our target zone. Now it's coming back up to retest the upper 25%. But it hasn't broken really. It's not really given me the. I'll be looking more at this pivot low to this pivot high now. That before we drew it from the high to the low, now I'm going to go from the low to the high. I'm thinking here, seeing what we got, what we have to work with. Yeah, right now there's really no place to draw. There's really, because it's still range bound. I need to get up a little bit higher. Here's a pullback. It's already coming back up to retest the high. So we pretty much need to go to this one over here. And now we're in the, so this would be the zone I'll be looking at here. On my lower time frame range, here's my range right in there. For the high, for it to be bouncing off the high. Strong move down, came back, tested. Now it's retesting this little area right up in here. But right now it's just not ready. If you don't know what to do with it, if you're having a hard time drawing, getting the picture drawn that you want to be doing, just move on to the next one. And that's about what we're about ready to do with this. And again, when you see these, the currencies are like we had the British. No, these are giving it up a little bit, but the British pound now is the stronger one. Swiss. So the British pound has taken the lead. They were consolidated. They're both strong. They're both strong, and now the British pound said, "Okay, I'm going to maintain the strength," and the Swiss says, "I'm giving it up a little bit." So right now we want to be trading to the strength of the British pound. So we have to reverse our thinking. So let's remove this object. The higher time frame zones are still valid, but it's also coming up into the upper 25%. And it's in our money zone. This was a high for the overnight high, but it's coming up into this area. And now the question is, what's it going to do once it gets up here? But we have a red zone and nothing real conclusive. Here's a bounce arrow on a, where are we at here? We're on a 1 minute chart. Here's our target. Again, there's not enough room for the target. That's only, we're at 7 pips right now to the target zone. It would have been nice to be able to take it off this bounce down here, but we had no confirmation that it wasn't going to go lower. And the fact when it broke this trend line, it broke it and never really came back and retested the trend line. So this little zone right here was something we had to deal with, this little wick right in here. Now that's cleared the wick. Now we're coming right back up into the other zone. We could maybe look at a pullback from here to here with a pullback. And looking at this for the target, but I wouldn't want to get on unless I had a pullback somewhere into around this purple line to retest for the upward move. You don't want to just jump on here thinking that, okay, it's breaking out, and then just all it does is get you into the high spot and comes back and takes your stop. So this bottom trend line is still valid. This one got breached. This one doesn't count anymore. And now I'm looking to see how the strong move up, pull back, and see if I can maybe get enough of a pullback to be able to get into this thing. So I'll take it from here to here. We don't know where this thing's going to stop. Right now I'm looking at this being the middle zone. This is the 23 to 50% pullback I'm looking for. So if it can pull back into the shaded area, this move up, pulls back into the shaded area, and give me enough room for a target here, then I can maybe take this trade if it pulls back into this area off of this upward move. So this would be the equivalent of these orange areas on the higher time frame. This is where it broke out, and I'm looking for it to pull back to retest it before it makes its high way up into this area. So right now, the picture I'm looking for is find out where the pivot high is. A pullback into this zone somewhere, and then takes another run to the upside up into this area. So this would be this would be my area where I'm going to get in, trying to get in. This would be the area where I probably take my profit. If it doesn't give me that picture, I don't take the trade. And the pound is still strong to the Swiss. So now we're just looking for the pullback. Have this green line, the green moving average, come back, curl back down, not cross over the yellow one on the 1 minute chart. Here's our pullback. It's got to pull back at least to the 23% line. I want to at least see a wick into the 23. It doesn't have to close, but I want to see at least a wick into the 23. Because right now we have this zone right here, so that doesn't give us much room to get our profit. We know the sellers started coming in this area. We don't know if this zone is going to hold or not, but I at least like to see it get up to at least retest this pivot high. In order to do that, I need to get a pullback enough to be able to get my 7 pips. If it pulls back to at least get a pivot, a wick into this zone right in here, then I can take it and look, hoping that it goes a little bit deeper into this red zone. And this is just all price action we're looking at right now. This is how you can do these micro moves. We can get the very tight stop with a higher lot size for your target.
Your German 30 retraced a bit, Al.
Did it?
Yeah, to the 38. But it didn't close above it.
Yep. Still in this little wedge right here, still in this little range. This is where patience comes into play. Just have to be patient. Right now it's finding some buyers, some support right in here. Let's see, this is the British Swiss that we're looking at. This candle closes above this green moving average. We already had the pullback. I'll take a shot at this one. Wait till this candle closes. Looks like it's got pressure to the upside. Here's my spread that got me in all the way up here. And my 7 pip target's going to have to be through this zone. I'm not going to give this a lot of room here. You see how the fill on this was, where we got, this is where the fill, here's where this candle closed. That's our 2 pip spread right there. I'm going to put my stop and my target in. 15 pip stop, 7 pip target. If it can't break through this red zone, my stop is all the way below this trend line, which is the one that got broken. So it's this that worst case scenario right now. If it comes back down and breaks through that, I'll probably be out with maybe a 10 pip loss. But I still have the it still has the strength of the British pound on my side here to break through this red zone. One thing I liked about this yellow trend line held. The green was pointing down, and with this green candle, it pulled the green going up in the right direction. So we have a green, yellow, arrow moving average, 62. So all the moving averages are in the right direction, and gives me reason to think that this zone may not hold, and then it's going to come on up and retest, and I'll be out of the trade before then. The same pull back to about the 23%. So the target would be somewhere between the 38 and the 50. So what I would do is I would be putting a zone between the 50 and the 38 and then moving it down a little bit so it reflects the 23% pullback of this move. And then by that time, it's going to be coming on up into the upper 25% of the range. All right, just penetrate our red zone. Now this is our next target. Here's our target zone. There's the 38 to 50. It pulled back to 23, so I'm going to take this zone. I'm just going to tighten it down just a little bit, about to the halfway mark, which is right where my target is. But remember, it has to get through, the price has to be able to go through the spreads worth of my target in order to get my target filled. My fib on up, look if it see if it pulls back another to the 23 to let's see, where is my zone here? See, it pulls back into this zone again. Let's see if it hits my target. So this red zone's still here. The one that was penetrated was sitting right in here. That one's gone. That one got penetrated off this green candle. And now it's heading up to retest. There was a little bit of a gap in between this red zone and the other red zone. And that's right where my target is. I'm just seeing if it can come up to retest this little area right up in here. If it comes up close and can't break through, then I'll just close this trade out myself if it can't penetrate through my target zone. Right now, there's no reason to think that it's not going to make it. And I'm looking at my other charts just to see if there's confirmation here.
You're almost at your profit.
Yeah, it's getting pretty close. It's struggling a little bit. And I don't want to turn a winning trade into a losing trade. There it goes. There's my target.
There we go.
Now again, you can always still wait. You can still keep tracking this trend line. As the prices keep getting higher and higher, you could maybe move this Fibonacci line up to where the high is. Still keep looking for the pullbacks. And this zone may not hold, but right now this is our higher time frame, 25%. So we're getting up pretty close to where this price was rejected on the higher time frame. So once it gets up there, there's no reason to keep playing around with it. Just take your profit, wait for pullback, see if it comes up, and see if, because it could very well go much deeper inside this zone. If we go into our 15-minute, you see we have, this is a pretty strong red zone here, higher time frame, level on a level, right up here in the upper 25%, which is this blue shaded area. And that's where you just wait for the next setup. So in my mind, this trade is done. I move on to the next one. And take a look at our German 30, see what it's doing. It's still inside this channel. All of our moving averages are still saying to go, well, we're just now getting the 1 minute, 5 minute, or 5 and 13 cross on the moving averages. Let's see what it looks like on a 1 minute chart. Right now, I don't see which way to go with this one. See the downward channel coming up on the 200 moving average. We have the cross. Moving averages are pretty much getting into a consolidation mode. Let's see where if we have a lower time frame. Let's take our main fibs off again. Our higher time frame fibs, take those off because we have them marked out. And now we're looking to see where we can draw the lower time frame Fibonacci's for the pullback and for the trending. Right now, it's not really trending any particular way. It's still kind of going sideways inside this channel. So I'd like to see it get up a little bit higher here with a strong rejection. This was not a bad rejection, pullback, rejected, pullback, but now it's coming right back up into this area. And it's not really, this is not really what I call a strong move. This was stronger, pullback, stronger, pullback. But right now it's coming right up into this zone. And it was right where this drop was. And now it's coming back to retest it. Again, I don't think there's enough room here to take a trade. That's only like a $6 move. So we'll wait on this one. They're just about 8:30, so we're seeing, you're going to start seeing some movement on the other indexes as we approach 8:30 to 9 o'clock. You'll see some early morning moves, perhaps on the S&P. Let's take a look and see if there's anything there. See what the S&P did last night. Here's our Sunday, Monday time frame here. Here's our money zone. This is the beginning of the money zone. This was the overnight session before the money zone hit. And right now it's still pretty much trading inside the bodies of these candles. Well, actually, I take the back. This one broke out to the upside, got rejected, which makes me think this thing's going to go lower. Let's see, here's our 15-minute chart. This is Friday's low. Here's this morning's high. Let's see how much room we have in between our target areas. So between the 23 and the 38, I'm looking for at least 10 pips, $10. That's only a $3 move. I'd like to see a little bit more room on that. Let's go to a higher time frame. This thing made some all-time highs last week, so we have to play that and keep that in mind. Is it going to go higher or lower? This was Thursday, Friday. Now we have, so this is our range right now, all-time high, and we're looking for a pullback into this area. We don't know where this high is going to. This high could very well keep on going higher and higher today and earlier this week. So the fact that this thing's making new highs consistently, I'd be looking for major pullbacks before I got into this thing. You don't want to try and catch this rocket ship on the way up. You just wait for a pullback and then try and get back online. So we're going to draw the upper part of the trend channel. Here's the upper 25. You can see it was tested right here on Friday. There's our upper 25. There's the lower 25. And here is the middle third. This is the higher time frame that I'm drawing right now. with the orange lines. Those orange lines are going to be the targets. And then I'll move it to a lower time frame and redraw the zones with a little different color. But just know that the orange lines are my higher time frame. The blue zones are my higher time frame zones. If I could put a little border on that, I would, but I can't. So there's my 1 hour chart. Now I'm going to go to my 5 minute chart and see what I have on the 5 minute, looking for a trend. Look and see where it's going to be reversing positions. Here is the high. See, it had made a high overnight, basing, went nowhere, and now it's starting to trend a little bit to the downside. I want to see it get out of this zone with a strong move down before I start looking for the trend to the downside. So as long as it's up in this blue zone, there's no trade right now. If I can get a strong move down out of the blue zone, back into the blue zone with a nice little retracement. So I can take this Fibonacci off because we already have that drawn. We have our areas marked. Delete that. And I'm looking for the strong pullback. This wasn't bad pullback, but look how it just based. Once it's basing like that on a pullback and it goes nowhere, just if you get into that, if you got into this trade, just if I get like 6 or 7 lines are just in a very tight range, a lot of times I'll just close it out just to get out of it until it decides what it's really going to do. This is a nice little strong move down. We'll see if this thing will confirm it. Here's my first target area. But I want to see it come down, retrace, and then look for my target. So again, the picture I'm looking for is going to be a strong move down out of the blue zone, retrace, back into the blue zone, not taking this high out. It's got to stay lower than this for retracement, and up to 76% of the move, or even 88% of the move retracement, it's okay, as long as it doesn't break. Right now, if it doesn't break this pink zone right here. So I see it come down, out of the zone, come back up, retest it, and then I'm looking for this for the target. This is the picture. That's the picture I'm looking for. And then if it closes below here, then I'm looking for another pullback to get back in again, and then look for the target to be this one. Get it closed below that, pull back, and then target 2. But none of this will happen until this thing comes out, closes below, and then retraces back in again. This would be the first target, the green zone. I'd have to make sure I have enough room for the green zone from the entry to be able to get in, and that would be, this is the S&P. And I'd like to see at least a $10 move. That would be an $11 move if it comes up to this little pivot. So come back down, come back up to about where this little pivot is, this zone, and then look for a chance to get an entry. And again, we want to have the moving averages, which I didn't put on here yet. So let me do that, which means I could take all this other stuff away. Let me do it this way. Good. And if you want to put your moving averages on just by each time, I mean, I've made a template, but every time I redo the template, I'll lose what I just drew. So I'm just going to put them on again manually. Indicator, trend lines, look for moving averages, and I'm going to put I'll put my 13, which is going to be yellow. I'll make it a little bit thinner here. There's my yellow one, and then my 5-period moving average. Insert indicator, trend line, moving average. Then I have my 5, and that's going to be green. These are the ones I'm really looking for this 1 minute chart. I'm really looking for the 5 and the 13 to be in agreement. The green's got to lead in the direction of the trade that the yellow one is. This is a nice little pullback. We don't have the crossover yet. If it crosses over, it's probably going to go higher until it crosses back over again. Right now, we're looking at this. I'm looking at this right in here. And with the S&P, if I look for see what the strength of the dollar is, because that's our S&P index, the dollar is bottom third. Bottom's weak, so right now I'm thinking this S&P is more likely to go to the upside with the dollar being weak. If the dollar were strong up here, I'd be looking at more to be going to the downside on the S&P. So right now the dollar is relatively weak. I'm still looking at this as a pullback. We're still going up higher. So even if it does give us this picture, we'll double check that again at the time and see if we have any change in the strength of the dollar. Again, these are the pre-market moves for our market doesn't open until 9:30. So these are the pre-market moves. Here's a pivot high. Here's a lower high. I can draw a trend line from this point to this point. There's the anchor. Here's the first hit. Here's our trend line. And you can see right now, this, imagine that came right up. This is where I drew this projection. I just eyeballed that. So we have that lower upper trend line. Now we can look and see if we can find a bottom trend going to the upside, but we had this move up. We had this low. This low did get broken here, but not with a lot of authority to it. It's still in the upper 25% zone. Yeah, right now I think we just have to be looking at there's really no bottom trend line. This is kind of a flat line right here. Wick down, got rejected. So there is a little bit of that would have been, here's a strong move up. Here's a little basing right in here. So I'd probably be looking at this little zone right here as a retest to the downside. And that's where this is, right in this little area. What do we just have here? New Zealand Swiss. Let me take a look at that one in a minute. Take a look at that real quick here. New Zealand Swiss. I see nothing imminent there, so we're good to keep watching this one here for right now. But this little zone right in here, I want to see that this is where strong move up, pulled back, took off out of there and made a new high. So this little area right in here, there's probably some buyers that could expect some buyers to be coming in. That's what I see. I want to see this thing come down, take all these little buyers coming out, and then the next zone down here would be way down here at the target. But I want to see it take the buyers out, come back, reject it, and then come one down. So the picture my picture that I'm looking for hasn't changed any. Just waiting for things to happen. Let's take a look at the New Zealand Swiss. 15-minute chart. Strong move down, found a base, came back up to the middle. And when I draw this Fibonacci from here to here, you'll probably find out those three orange lines are going to be right in this area. Let me get my moving averages up first before I do that. Template, load. This is my template with all my moving averages on it. And you can see it's consolidating, and it's consolidating right about in the middle of where this move down here was. So we're going to draw our fibs from here. Here's our middle zones. Right here's the 38, 50. You can see the price is all hanging in right into that area. So until it breaks out of that area, there's really not much we can do with it. There's our middle zone. This is our higher time frame. Draw the upper 25 and lower 25. Shapes, rectangle. And this is going to be the area for the day. Take it right over to the end of the day break. This is my daily playground. Lower 25 to the daily playground. And now I'm going to go to my lower time frame. I'm going to go to my 1 minute. Here's a strong move up. Here's a pullback. Every moving averages are moving to the upside. It came out of this 50. We had the close here, pullback, close above, pullback. This is another pullback. This may be a nice little trade coming up. Then get into it on time. Here's our upward move. Pull back into the 38%. Have the crossover of the green versus the yellow. It's still working on that. And do we have room to the red zone for our target? That's only 2 pips. Don't think so. Don't think that's going to be good enough. If we have this one for a target, then we would maybe be able to do it. That's 7 pips, 10 pips, 8. There's 10 pips. I'd like to see it pull back more to this 50%, this line right in here. It did make the 23. This is my area where I see the pullback into this area right in here, 23 to 50. Check and see where the Swiss is with New Zealand. Here's my New Zealand right here. Here's my Swiss. My Swiss is weak. Swiss is weaker than New Zealand. Swiss is weaker than New Zealand. So that tells me that New Zealand is the stronger of the two. If the New Zealand's stronger of the two, New Zealand's the first currency of the pair. So that means we're going to favor the upside. So that's not too bad. And the question is this going to go back and retest? It retested the blue moving average. And we have the green cross the yellow to the downside. Now the green's trying to cross the yellow to the upside. Here's our wedge. There's our anchor. There's our hit. Pretty much of a flat top on that one. And then here's our wedge here at the bottom. Here's the start of the move up. Here's a pivot. Here's our bottom anchor. Here's a hit. Now we're going to see if this trend line is going to hold. We could get a head fake into this area right in here. This is where it can break the trend line, but it can't break this wick right here. So there's some strong buying coming up here. If we get this pullback, comes back down, gets back into the wedge with the moving averages in the right direction, we can maybe take this trade to the upside. Right now, I don't want to take it to the short side because it's just not fitting the bill. Questions?
No questions.
Okay, it's quiet. It's Monday morning. Everybody's
It's
quiet.
Monday morning. Everybody's trying to wake up, as are the markets.
Yeah, as is myself.
Yeah.
Like I said, just know what you're looking for, and if you don't get what you're looking for, then don't take the trade. And just keep in mind, if you're thinking it's going to go long and it's not giving you what you're looking for, look in the other direction. Redraw the picture you want to see, and if it gives you that picture, then go for it. Right now, this could be a nice little drop coming down. It never did get up into the upper zone, but right now it's sort of it went from down, came up. Nice little, this little pivot is going to be an interesting pivot right here because that's the first major pivot that they rejected, forming the bottom trend line, forming our wedge, and now just seeing if it's going to break this little area. If it breaks this area, it has this little area to go through. If it breaks this area, it's got this little area to go through, down all the way here to the 78%. And our lower and our zone is, these are our higher time frame zones. We have 3 green, 2 red. It does have more pressure to the upside based on this chart. If we go to our 15-minute chart, let's see what the zones look like on that. We're looking at 2 red, 2 green. It's kind of an equilibrium. And with that, you want to see at least a 50 pip move in between 50 pip range in here. That's 40, 46. That's a decent range. Little shy of our 50 pip target, but still close enough to probably be able to use it. Take a look at this on our 5-minute chart. We have a trend line from a higher time frame. We're looking at, here's a pivot low. Here's a retest. Here's a pivot high. Here's a hit. Waiting for confirmation to the upside. Waiting for confirmation to the downside. So here's our anchor. Here's a hit. Establishes the trend line, but doesn't validate it until I get the third hit. Here's the anchor. Here's the hit. Establishes the trend line. Doesn't validate the trend line until you get the third hit, rejection. Once you get that third hit rejection, and actually even with this, you could almost take this one over, way over here. As I look and see, there's another little pivot low. Here's the first hit. Here's where first rejection. It did make a low, make it a higher low. I can, since that was a rejection, you can look at one little breach, the first breach of this I can take. So that this trend line is somewhat validated. Let's see if there's a bottom line here. No, that's about as low as that one. That one got it. If I took it down to the bottom of the zone, it helps that middle pivot a little bit, but not much. But this is the range it's trading in. That's where my Fibonacci's are. And here's my middle zone from the up move to the, so right now it's back in the middle zone. If it comes back down to, so here's the, on my lower time frame Fibonacci range, here's my upper 25. Here's my lower 25. Everything else is sort of consolidating. So in this case, if you were to, and it's in such a rather wide range, I'm not sure what the range of this thing is, from here to here. That's 13 pips. You could barely get your target out of there, but you have to get pretty much all the way down to the extreme of the one to the extreme of the other. So basically, if you get a tag of the upper trend line, you want to take it short, use your stop above this pivot. So your stop would be up or right around in this area. You'd have maybe a 2, 3, you know, that's a real tight stop, 3, 4 pip stop. And then your target would be coming down to here, which would be your, you could get your 7 pips out of that. But I'd want to see a bounce off of this trend line. I want to see a bounce off of this trend line, moving averages in the right direction, and then using the opposite trend line for your target and see if you can get enough pips to make it worth taking the trade once you get the moving averages crossing over. Go to my 1-minute chart. Here's the bottom. Now, so this is the lower time frame stuff I'm drawing here right now, so just keep that in mind. Moving average crossing over. It looks to me like it wants to break through the bottom here. Here's my 38 to 50 area. These are where the, relatively speaking, these are the target zones. But these are higher time frame targets. So we're looking at the, mainly we're looking at the higher time frame target. If it breaks here, this will be the first target. Again, if it breaks here, you only have 2 pips, you barely get your stop out of there. Again, not enough room to take the trade. You want to know where your target's going to be and then see if your entry can be enough to give you that 7 to 10 pip range to be able to take the trade. And you want to be in the right direction. So like from this up move, it did pull back into the 23% range. It broke, came back down, so right now it's finding its way right into this range. What we don't know, is it going to break to the bottom and retest this, or is it going to come back up and retest that? Either way, there's only 4 pips, there's not enough room. Too tight, move on to the next trade. But we drew it out to confirm that we don't want to take this one. Not in this particular place. The range going sideways is just too tight. from the bottom to the top of this whole range, you only have 13 pips. You'd have to be right on the mark to the extreme of the range in order to make it worth taking the trade. So, and as it gets closer and closer, it's going to get tighter and tighter. It's going to be harder and harder to get your target out of that. So we're just going to let this one go. And let's see where we are at. What time? We have about 9 more minutes left before we're going to go. Anything else over here? Here's the New Zealand CAD 1 hour chart. Let's take a look at that. Come over here. How's the German 30 doing? Is it doing anything to speak of? Still kind of hanging around in there. New Zealand CAD. Let's take a look at it.
Everything's super sluggish this morning, it looks like. It's a usual Monday though, right?
Yeah. We did get one trade out. That was not too bad. I mean,
no, it was okay.
It wasn't a real exciting trade, but it did work.
It did the job, right?
It did the job, yeah.
Actually, the S&P, believe it or not, even though the market's not open in New York, it's moving. It's moving down a fair bit from earlier this morning.
Yeah. And we'll start seeing it start moving a little bit more in the next 8 minutes. You'll probably start seeing it making its range. When the market opens up, it'll probably go a little bit lower and then drive one up to retest the high. So this is where you can maybe catch a pre-market move. But again, we don't have, this wasn't a bad pull drop here, but it didn't come out of my 25%, it didn't come out of my upper zone. That's why it just didn't move enough to make me happy with that. It didn't come up and retag the trend line. So it's still this is a really relatively tight area. It's only that's a $3 move on the S&P, which is that's about as small as I usually like seeing. A 10 pip move, $10 move, and a $5 target is what I usually like to see have the ability to do. Now as this one comes down, this would be the first wave. This would be wave 1, wave 2. This could be a wave 3 wave. So this one could actually, I would expect this thing's probably come down and break through the bottom of this. This would be a third wave till a retest. But I don't want to see, I'm just going to let this one go. This is a pre-market move that you might see coming down where this could be a nice little, this would be wave 1, wave 2. If you're an LA wave person, here's be the wave 3, pull back to wave 4. Somewhere like that, and then we have wave 5 down here to the target, which would probably be a little bit shorter than this would be wave 3. This is the big wave right here. This is the one you try and catch, but we didn't catch it because it didn't fit the bill. Although it looks like it's trying to do that. In which you could just try and catch the pullback on it to see if it comes back to this target. And you probably get that pretty much at the open of the U.S. market. You may get that move. Back to New Zealand CAD. 1 hour chart. See what the range is between here and here. That's a 70 pip range. That's good enough to draw the Fibonacci. How our moving average is up. Draw my higher time fibs from here to here. From my upper and lower zones. And we just do the same thing over and over again. Here's my zone. There's the upper 25. Here's the lower 25 to the end of the day. Middle zone, so here's the just a little bit there. There. And there. Have my zones drawn, remove the Fibonacci, and redraw the other direction.
Actually, there's a request if you could have a look at the pound Aussie if there's time.
Pound Aussie.
Yeah.
Now let me finish this one. Let's take a see if we can find that higher time frame. New Zealand CAD, see where the New Zealand and the CAD are in the scheme of things. Here's the CAD is strong. New Zealand is weak. We want to trade this to the strength of the CAD. So we'll be trading this to the strength to the downside. We have to wait for the pullback. So we're trading to the strength of the downside. So I'm going to start my new fib up here. After left this zone, here's a bounce. There's an arrow. Here's a target. Now, is there enough room to the target from where the arrow was? This is on a 5-minute chart. That's only 14 pips, so we're getting kind of tight on that. We do have a level on a level. So I would be drawing this one from, excuse me, from where it left the zone, which would be right about in here. Coming on down, we'll see how far it goes for the pullback. Here's our strong move down, coming back. Here's our 3 targets. It's coming into our second target area. Should maybe get a little pullback in here. And we'll be looking at the pullback to our 23 to 50% zone, and then possibly have enough room to be able to take it to the target zone down here. So right now we have a couple minutes to be looking to see what happens as this 5-minute candle closes. Within another 3 minutes or 2 minutes, we'll have a little bit idea on how the 1-hour candle closes at 9 o'clock to see what kind of a pullback we get. What was the other pair that we're looking at, Eva?
I think it was the pound Aussie.
Pound Aussie, pound.
Yeah, pound Aussie.
Pound Aussie, 15-minute. This might be a little bit the same story in a different direction here. Pound is still strong. The Aussie is relatively strong as well, so not enough of a split for that, but let's see what the ranges are. 15-minute chart. So we have a range from here to here. That's 108 pips. That's a pretty good size range. We have a trend line from here to here, so we're going to be looking at lower highs and higher lows. There's our trend line. And let's see over here, we have a trend line this way. This is our playground area. In between here and here, is there enough room to draw a Fibonacci from here to here? 73 pips, that's not too bad. We're on a 15-minute chart. It's lots of room here. So I'm going to draw my higher time frame fibs from this pivot to the downside. We do have more strength to the upside. So what this might give us is come out of the 25, come back into the 25, and then retest up here for a target. This would be my target area. Get my templates up. Here's our moving averages. You can see there's consolidating. They're all kind of bunched up together. We'll use this range for our, actually, let's do our trend lines here. Do our trend line down here. There's our middle. Draw a Fibonacci. So I kind of like this one all the way up to the top here. And the reason why is because this one's already retested this area. You see where this thing pulled out. See, this is where the upper 25 is. It pulled out, came back and retested it. I kind of like it this way better. Even though it's a lot bigger range, I kind of like it better that way. Because it made the lower high, so it's starting to trend inside the sideways range. came down into the lower 25 and bounced off of it and heading on back up. So right now it's bouncing between the two zones. Here's our daily range. I don't think there's anybody coming in behind us today, so we can, if we go over a little bit of time, we're okay. Here's the middle zones, these three. Right in the middle. So right now I'm looking at, we do have more green than we do red. So I'm looking at this thing more strength to the upside. And if we're looking at the British to the Aussie, the British is stronger to the Aussie. So we are looking at more strength to the upside. So I'm going to use this as my higher time frame. Going to move my Fibonacci, the higher time frame levels, and draw my lower levels. And I'm going to be looking at, came off this zone, looking for a consolidation. Let's go to the 5-minute chart and see, or just go to 1 minute, see what that looks like. As I look at this right now, this was a rather slow, gradual pull off of this area. So there's nothing real strong coming up or strong going down. It's just sort of lollygagging along inside this range. So this one doesn't really excite me too much. I like to see a lot more enthusiasm on the rejections of the different levels. This wasn't a bad rejection here. Came back up, closed above. This isn't a bad move right in here, so let's try that. Take this from here to here. Look for the pullback to the 50%, 60% line. Still pulling back some. You have the green crossing the yellow now, so right now you don't want to be taken along with that in the wrong direction. If we get this coming down, get the green to cross back up above the yellow moving average, then we might have a shot at it. Right now it's coming deep into this zone, and we really don't know where it's going to stop. Here's my 23 to 50 right in here. And it broke the 50, closed below the 50. So now I'm going to move this thing down one more level. And see if it bounces off this moving average, give us the crossover and give us room to the upside. This would be the first target up here if it comes up and retests this red zone, but I have to have enough of a pullback in order to get into it. I need at least 10 pips. So I'd like to see this thing get back down at least 10 pips, probably retesting this trend line from this pivot low to this pivot. Here's our anchor. We can actually maybe use this one. Anchor, here's the hit. Here's the retest. Here's our bottom trend line. It's coming back down to test this area. And then we have a upper trend line. But we do have strength to the upside. So I'd be looking at maybe a bounce off of this bottom trend. Coming back in, then maybe you could do a buy stop. If it comes down and bounces off of that, you may be able to do a buy stop right around in this 38% range, looking for the target of being up here. First target there's your 7 pips. And there's 14 pips, so there's be target 1, target 2. But I just see a bounce off of this first. Or a crossover of the moving averages. And this is British Aussie. It's still, there's a little bit of conflict with it, but not too bad. But right now we don't have a crossover. We want the green to cross over the yellow. It did have a strong little push up, but then the sellers came right back in, drove it back down again. So here's your little trend line on the upper part. Here's the anchor. Here's the hit, rejected. Came back up, hit, rejected. Still waiting for it to bounce off of here. So there's a little bit of a battle going on right into this area right now, trying to decide which way it's going to go. And with that, I think we're going to wrap this thing up. Any last minute questions before we go?
No, there doesn't seem to be any.
Okay. All right. Well, that's all I have to give everybody today. We'll see everybody tomorrow, 7:30 to 9. Stay safe, stay green, and don't overtrade. Don't take something that doesn't give you the right picture. Be patient, and we'll see you tomorrow. Take care, everybody.
To see y'all tomorrow. Have a great day.